And I have my new toy. We're on air. I just flipped the on air button back there. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And I got to compartmentalize this little monologue. This is my, and you'll identify with this, Bob. This is my Johnny Carson monologue. Uh, uh, and it's funny, in the 6 years I've been doing this, half the people I say it's my Johnny Carson monologue, people say, who? And
Oh,
it puts me into
pioneer, pioneer.
oh, it puts me into an instant depression that half the people I'm talking to don't know who Johnny Carson is, and I don't have the strength to explain
I
it, so
know.
we just let it scoot away. So anyway, everybody, I'm with officially Robert Collin, and I call him Bob, and we have an interesting history that is laced with particulates of commonality. You like the way I worded that?
Yes.
That's the writer in me, laced with particulates of commonality. A lot of commonality from basketball to most importantly, and why we're here, the environment and the climate and our species. And it's funny, we met for the first time just to kind of do a quick little Zoom last week just to kind of get acquainted because I like to do that, especially when there's commonality stuff we could talk. So it was, 5, 10 minute Zoom, 3 hours later. Uh,
Yes.
that's right. 3 hours later, we're still going strong, and so much for a 5, 10 minute Zoom. This won't be a 3 hour interview because I don't want to turn people off, but I'm just I'm gonna and Bob is gonna kind of explain it all. We're here because the climate adaptation generation, which has been an award-winning climate book. We're going to talk about that. I have it on my Kindle, and we're going to talk about that and climate because we need to do more than talking. But talking is a hell of a way to begin. And Bob is amazing. There's like a sonnet. I don't know, it's Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Let me count the ways. I'm paraphrasing. Let me count the number of degrees that Bob has gotten. You like the way I worded that? BSJD, law, MS, a whole bunch of stuff. He's published in law, social work, urban environmental planning. Uh, um, uh, it goes on, and he describes some of the most important, controversial environmental issues. It's part of his life. It's part of his journey, and we got together, and I'm so grateful for that. And then we also, just to plug Rick Delarada, and talk about small world. Uh, the small world. Rick Delarada is one of the more amazing personalities that I've ever met. Jazz for Peace. He's all over the world, in Africa, literally all over the world, in the Middle East. Jazz for Peace, and he's doing something now with elders,
Mhm.
which I'm one, and Bob is at the fringes of that. And I interviewed, and I became very friendly with Rick, and then so just so happens the other day. Bob interviews with Rick, and Bob is wearing a T-shirt I designed 30 years ago. Uh, Earthhood, I designed that 30 years ago. It's been sitting up in my extra bedroom up there. Anyway, this is one hell of a special, important interview. So I am hugely grateful for your time and your passion and the universe for getting us together. So, monologue is officially over. There were no jokes, really. It wasn't Johnny Carson typical, but nevertheless. Why don't you do a little background, whatever you want to talk about, and then we're going to talk about some of the pieces of energy that gave birth to this that we all need to know about. Take it away, Bob.
It's an honor to be here. It's wonderful to have some of the shadow of your energy on this issue. You've done it for a long time. You've lived it. You've been at the cutting edge. I'm been a lot of things with a lot of degrees at an early age. In my heart, I'm a social worker with an MSW. I have a mess up degree, which is my Master's of Science of Urban Planning. So I know how to mess up in a professional manner, and as well as a couple law degrees, because I just wanted to know what happened when power was around and power was in the room. So I did a lot of studying. I told you how I would study, get the syllabus early, read the table of contents for the book before the class even started. Was good at school, but better at helping people. As through all my education, my academia was just a place where I rested myself and went out into the community, went out into Planned Parenthood, went out into NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And to me, my purpose is doing good. And one thing I can do is write. And I love it. It's almost self-indulgent. The intensity of it, the wife that would tolerate the long, intense 10-hour, 12-hour days for 10 years is a big part of it. And she was part of my writing, Robin Morris Collin. I'm very grateful for that. But I never got a raise. I never got tenure. Uh, wasn't part of any real club unless it was an organization I helped found. One was the first environmental justice state agency in the United States, EJTF, Environmental Justice Task Force. The other was CARE, the Coalition Against Environmental Racism at the University of Oregon, on there, and that might still be around. I'm always happy to help them out. They were ragtag organizations, but ragtag with energy, with saliency, and that brought in people of color to the environmental issues. Now, one of the things that brought me to the climate adaptation book and the climate change in the classroom book was the fact that my other books were being marketed under someone else's name, kind of upset me. So I thought, well, I'll just publish them myself and be free to say what I say and bring what knowledge and crystallize intelligence that my 60 years and the term I've learned from Kelvin. I'm going to steal a lot of terms from Kelvin, so
Fine.
just so you know, Earthhood on this, and to make it real. I'm very inclusionary in our sustainability encyclopedia that my wife was the lead editor on. I have equity, I have environment, and we have a whole volume on business. We include business. We don't exclude business. We were never really part of any environmental group per se, but we care a lot about it. And so it does a lot of blue collar, regular people. So the first thing I wanted to do with my environmental education book, my climate change in the classroom book, the prologue was sent to the Oregon legislators. They passed a law. They had a lot of other sources, but I like to think that at least the research was in the preface, and it happened, was to reduce climate anxiety. And that is very difficult. 70% of the global population has climate anxiety. 45% of the global population says it kind of interferes with their daily existence. And we can talk a lot about the studies and the research, and I'm very well aware of all the science is going on to that. I'm aware of the methane explosions that were occurring today in the Ukraine because of underground pockets that have been uncovered due to war. There's a lot of boring facts and listeria lists of things that I can give you, but right now the real people want to adapt. We are in a time of floods. We are in a time of wildfires. We are in the time of earthquakes. Climate scientists do not count earthquakes as climate change because I'm dealing with the reals. It's in my book, The Climate Adaptation Generation.
Yes.
And because when an earthquake happens, floods can happen, landslides can happen, wildfires can happen, and we are all emergency responders. A mother saving her drowning child is an emergency responder. You and I seeing someone hit by a car in the street, we respond, we're an emergency responder. So as these natural disasters get bigger, the swath of what an emergency responder is becomes more important. Librarians are information emergency responders, as in Nashville, North Carolina. 10-year study kind of did actually substantiate the emergency responder status of librarians for information when cell phones go down. So this is what motivated me on my book, and to make it real, to make it actual. Now, I'm not afraid of politics on it at all, and I have a chapter on capitalism and Marxism. And you won't see AI and Marxism in the same sentence in any other book. I'm not a Marxist. I don't know if I'm a capitalist, but a lot of climate adaptation occurs without a lot of governmental intervention. It's schools, it's blue collar people building the roads, making the culverts so kids don't drown in them, like they did nearby Frederick, Maryland, 3 weeks ago, because they didn't have a culvert big enough. There's a big culvert study going right now nationally in terms of making them safer due to the intense rainfall intensification. Now, I have a whole chapter on rain intensification. Is that a climate change? I don't care if it's correlated or caused. It is. It's happening when it's intense rainfall. It comes with straight line winds. When straight line winds hit it, the ground is soft and sodden and it knocks over power lines. So we need to harden our electrical grid to deal with this, and that's a practical reality. If we try to be resilient, if we try to mitigate, if we try to prevent climate change, yay, that's good. But most people, to get by, have to adapt to the situation around them. And it's a community issue. So with the climate anxiety, I was very concerned about that because it's preventing our future leaders coming and being the people that can help us adapt to this, can help us be resilient, can help us mitigate. The kids, and everyone's a kid to Carl and I these years, but the kids are first thing I do, I actually end up talking to their parents and their teachers. Many primary school teachers have been traumatized by climate change and natural disaster. They have a lot of climate anxiety themselves. And I talk to everyone. I include everyone. Even if I don't agree with what they're saying personally, I listen to them and listen hard to them. Like, why are they saying what they're saying? What motivates them to say what? Because I don't presume anyone to be stupid. So what I tell them is it's okay to be anxious about the climate. You're not abnormal. You're nothing wrong with you. There's nothing bad about you. You're not ignorant. You're not stupid. There's no label like that with you. It's okay to be anxious. So there's a sigh of relief with that. But still, they feel helpless. They feel helpless with climate change. Oh, they're going to put a big tax on carbon, on the foods that use carbon. It'll just be more expensive and it will still go to hell in a handbasket. So they feel helpless. So what I do with that, with kids and to the adults too, is I show them successful climate adaptation studies going on around the world with global telecommunication kicking off in a high gear like we've never seen before. We can readily find successful climate adaptation, most of the time without governmental involvement. So right away, we take away that sense of helplessness. With adaptation, you can get a sense of control. With resilience, not so much. And with mitigation, not at all. So we reduce it that way. And then, and I think Carl in youth probably shared as I did in my youth, the latest whiz-bang scientific thing that probably isn't able to be scaled up without the ability to make a profit from it. But that's another issue. But it can't, like, straws or writing pencils out of bamboo leaves, recyclable. There's a zillion cool little things like that going on. Japan has had tsunamis and earthquakes, and their parks are set up so they can be emergency shelters. Their playground equipment, they have tents that set that up to be a shelter. Everyone in Tokyo is no more than 30 minutes away from walking to one of these things. Now, we don't talk about waste a lot. We don't talk about sewage and water. My book, Encyclopedia of Trash Talk, isn't Bob swearing. It wouldn't be that big, but it's on waste and recycling around the world. Japan has it set up so that their sewers can become manhole covers can be lifted up and they can put a toilet in there in terms of emergencies. Wow. Oakland, California has copied that. Wow. So Oakland, California is not a wealthy municipality. There's lots of critiques of it, but they, as a community of color, are making steps, doing what Japan has done successfully to adapt. LA is doing that. There's some other places we can all talk about. So I tell the kids, there are things that you can do. You're not helpless. There are whiz-bang things that are going on right now, so you have hope. So make them feel engaged. You're not weird. Make them feel some sense of control and give them a sense of hope. And then they learn faster than a wildfire burns in Wyoming. And on that. And so that that was the motivation for that particular book. Now we get to the stage where they're young adults or someone in the middle of their career with a couple kids, and they just want to climate adapt. So when their kids walk to school, the playground won't be too hot for them to walk on. So, very simple things. Trees providing shade. So the land use ordinances that say, okay, if you develop this much, you have to plant 10 trees, and they plant saplings. That's not going to do it. Saplings don't have much shade. You have to provide shade. All over Western Europe, where they're cooking right now, there is a lot of shade. Another factor with the millennials is that they're smarter than us. Right from where Carl and I are sitting 150 miles east, underneath the Atlantic Ocean, a very salty ocean, they just discovered 2 weeks ago a body of fresh water underneath the Atlantic Ocean.
I saw that.
Amazing. And I've mentioned perhaps with you about Yellowstone has been sinking for a long time. This year it's coming up. That's because of pressure underneath it. So they discovered that. The last big discovery is we know where all the water goes under the North American continent, hydrogeologically. We never knew where it all went. So when Texas was doing deep well injection to get rid of oil waste, dig a big hole, 150 feet down, stick it in. San Antonio doesn't have good drinking water because of that. Well, now we know where it occurred, where it's going. And for the first time on Earth, our generation can predict drought before we know what the weather's going to be, because we know how the aquifers are drying up. We can do these things. We know how to adapt, begin to think about it on a bigger scale. Now, one of the things I talk about that's awkward for some people is the digital divide. Now, most people, when they think about the digital divide, they think, well, there's some poor nation that can't afford technology, and so they don't have cell phones. Well, not really true. Nigeria did a thing, leap, a technology leap, and they didn't get wired phones. They leapt right into cell phones. You have to bank on your cell phone in Nigeria. So they did technology leaping, something that economists have studied. But there's what I'm talking about is us, me, Carl, our generation. We have the power. We own the property. We have the disposable income, and we have the most political power position. Senators, presidents, representatives, mayors, very few young people have that. And part of our generational problem, part of the digital divide for some of us, not Carl and I, but other of our generation, is that we don't like technology. We're against it. And so, we're against AI. Forget about it. AI is going to be like glasses. It's so powerful. Right now, AI outpredicts any meteorological models we have for extreme weather. You want an accurate weather forecast to know when you're going to hay your crops? Don't turn on the TV. Check ChatGPT. That will tell you the answer. And so the millennials and the climate adaptation generation are the first ones with skin in the game, the first ones with AI.
Interrupt you. I want to. You mentioned millennials and climate adaptation generation. Is it specifically who is? Is it only millennials, or is it all of us who are part of the climate adaptation generation?
It's all of us, but the ones that have the most anxiety are the millennials because 50 years from now, we'll be gone. So that 50 years ago, from a 20-year-old's perspective, how are they going to have a family? What kind of jobs are they going to have? What kind of illnesses will be around with warmer climates and new vectors for all sorts of things, dengue fever hitting South Carolina as we speak. And so and I talk about the diseases of the climate adaptation generation in terms of millennial. I have a whole list of them. And it's not meant to scare you, but it's meant to know that public health is a big part of climate adaptation and environmentalism. It isn't all trees and national parks. It's the air we breathe, the land we walk on, the water we drink. Land, air, and water law. So that's an excellent question, Carl. I appreciate that because there are people like you who 10 years ago were bringing together amazing groups of people that were dealing with some of these issues. We had the studies. A lot of those people were academics and they were right and they got tenure and they joined elitist environmental organizations and we haven't heard from them since. We haven't seen it change into action at the grassroots local community level. The adaptation is what you want to hear about, what I want to hear about, what a lot of people want to hear about. But some of our generation don't care because it's not going to affect them. They don't have the skin in the game. Did you want to ask something?
Yeah. Um, a bunch of years ago, not that many years ago, when doing my environmental stuff, and everything seemed to be revolving around 1.5 degree rise in temperature. We were all trying to motivate. We were all trying to get the troops involved, and we were all trying to figure out, everybody here on the planet, how to keep that rise in temperature before the end of the century at 1.5 degrees. And then maybe it's my imagination, because I have a vivid imagination. Then over the last few years, that disappeared. There's
Mhm.
no focus. I don't see it. There's no focus on the 1.5 degrees, but there is focus on adaptability, sustainability. So in other words, am I imagining this, or without putting a headline in the New York Times or Time Magazine, etc.? We don't care about the 1.5 because we ain't going to make it. And now let's figure out how to live with it.
You're
Uh,
not imagining it. You're not imagining it at all. We've given up on the 1.5.
we
And
have officially.
well, officially,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
Paris has a plan we didn't sign on to. We're one of the biggest polluters in the world. China's up there too on it, but the environmental enforcement of pollution laws is terrible. It's terrible enforcement. And so the 1.5 degrees, I remember reading a letter that was sent to the UN by the head of Vanuatu, the island nation, and he said, I am not signing this letter. It's a suicide pact for my country because a sea level rise with global warming will put us under. And it's not one big wave and they're all underwater. It's strong storms all around the world on it. When I was in New Zealand, I was teaching in Auckland. I was married in New Zealand. And the question came up, what will we do with some of the surrounding islands around here? This was back in the 80s, because it looks like they're going to be underwater. Can you be a sovereign nation without land? And you know, not kind of really in terms of how the world works. So we're destroying sovereign nations with sea level rise. Can Florida be a state if it's completely underwater? We're going to be 49 states. And I don't know if Puerto Rico is going to stay above water. And, you know, it won't be the fact that they'll be under 3 or 4 feet of water. It'll be storm intensification that will tear up that coast. Already, and I love Florida. I'm the only one I know that loves Florida for a lot of reasons. But a lot of Floridians leave Florida in the summer. Too hot. It's too hot for them on it. And maybe it's a big vacation resort, but those hotels are going to get blown over. So your question about whether we've given up on 1.5, people still strive for that. Diplomats that meet in Paris, that meet in DC, that meet in London, that is a goal they would like to get. It's an aspiration, as they say. It's an aspirational goal. Can we get it back down? I don't know. I think we're going to go over 2.0 in 10 years. And so, and I'm, you know, this isn't just Bob's scary world. This is what a lot of people believe because of the rate that the ocean's rising and how fast icebergs are going in. And the on it, and once it's you know, and again, Carl, to jump on your question a little bit, this is why we're moving toward adaptability. We, you know, we have to adapt. You know, we can try carbon taxes. You know, the whole exchange of carbon credits was rife with fraud, was rife with embezzlement, was rife with lack of environmental enforcement in terms of emissions. It just was fake. It was environmental posturing. So it becomes very popular in terms of individuals being environmental hypocrites, you know, actors that say, I'm for the environment, and you never see them talk about it again, but their promoters say that so they get more coverage. but also institutional hypocrisy. The EPA's environmental impact statements, people don't know this. I've taught that as a course. I wrote the first book on the EPA. They're advisory only, and you rarely have to ever do them. Rarely do you do an environmental impact statement. And
There's no enforcement there. It's just guidelines.
the very first thing with an environmental impact statement is the EA, environmental assessment. You don't know they're doing it. They don't tell you they're doing it. There's a federal courthouse in Eugene, Oregon. They were supposed to do an environmental impact statement because they're a federal building, right? They're supposed to do it. It was right near the Willamette River. Well, they redivided the property up so that the courthouse was in a separate tract, even though it was in there. All this gamesmanship has been allowed to occur. It's institutional environmental hypocrisy. So what I'm pushing for, what a lot of people are coming out for, is both environmental justice advocates as well as corporate capitalists that want to help environmental entrepreneurs at the grassroots level is an environmental democracy where everyone's included in having that. And so that brings energy up in terms of the Bronx, where they had a fire there that killed a bunch of people because they were heating their apartment with a stove,
Yeah.
and everyone was huddled around it for warmth. So how many, that's not a third world thing. That's us. It's us. So lots of changes. You're not imagining the despair over losing 1.5 as a goal. It's still an aspirational goal, but it's one that is not really meaningfully ever been pursued, and now not even aspirational, probably.
Okay. What are five? Just picking a number five. What are five? So, what can people do? What are five non-governmental climate adaptation things that people can do now, that people can consciously do now?
One thing, there was a Texas episode where the 400 Boy Scouts who were trained did not drown in that flood. Upstream, the group that was not trained, the Boy Scouts were trained, the upstream group was not trained, and they drowned. So one simple thing is for schools to have trainings on what you can do in a flood. I mean, what would we do in a flood? What would you do in a flood? Do we even know? Go, get a boat. I mean, so just having that simple type of training. The other thing with wildfires, depending where you are, is simply keep brush away from your house. Keep flammable plants away from your house. A tree that could fall on your house that's on fire will set your house on fire. So just that simple thing. With flooding, you elevate your roads, you create ditches so water can go down. And wetlands have to stay wetlands. Now, a kind of fourth, or I guess 3A thing would be to have porous surfaces, not the asphalt solid surface that just sheds the water off. So you get a big parking lot. That water is truth, as many indigenous people, which you might be part of, would say. Water is truth, and there's no line about water. So many other countries require porous materials that absorb a little water. They create, right now we're fighting about preserving wetlands. We can create wetlands, not just preserve them. As I look out my window about 300 yards away, they are creating a wetland to prevent flooding in a park. The probably fifth thing, I've lost track, but is to use parks as water storage places for flooding. And as I mentioned earlier with Japan and Oakland and parts of LA, have your parks also be places, if they're on high ground, of emergency shelter, where you can get food and water and go to the bathroom and have medicines that are stored up. So these are very simple infrastructural land use issues, educational issues in terms of training, that many municipalities, there's about just under 30,000 municipalities in the United States that can do that. Now, underutilized aspect of local government is public utility commissions, PUCs, and they have a lot of power. So they could help harden our electrical grid. We have a weak electrical grid. It goes down in one place, it can go down in a lot of places. the use of AC. And I actually did this early on in Salem. I climbed up on my tile roof and painted it white. Now, it was against the HOA rules, but they weren't really being enforced. And the paint cost $410. And so I said, well, this is an energy issue. And I deducted it from my taxes for being an energy conservation issue. It was the first year that they had done energy conservation tax issues for the state of Oregon. So much like they were like this. And the next year they said paint doesn't count. But now in New York City, using a simple thermodynamic issue of color, painting things white reflects heat. So you have your sidewalks both porous and a lighter color. You can walk in them. The streets of many Spanish cities now have little shades over them so that they can keep cool corridors there. And they have plants there so they're not bone dry. It keeps a little bit of moisture in the atmosphere. So very simple things for climate adaptation that will benefit communities and people. And again, my goal of you and me and everyone alive, especially the climate adaptation generation, is flourishing, to flourish. Now, if you're against flourishing, you're not going to be around too long. But and it's not like I want a climate cult of social change on climate adaptation. But if you're not going to help, get out of the way and let the people of a community, you'll benefit. You don't have to lift a finger, but you could still benefit. So we need microgrids around assisted living. We need microgrids around dialysis machines. We need microgrids around hospitals where we need to respect vulnerability in terms of climate adaptation because we were born vulnerable. When you and I were little babies, we were vulnerable. I don't feel that way now. You don't either, but we're getting close to where we might feel it. Yeah, I know. But we are, but not only is it the human developmental life cycle of vulnerability, but with the increase of natural disasters, the range of people who are vulnerable to a flood, to a wildfire, to an earthquake, to storm intensification, that's increased incredibly. Now, I've refrained from doing what I do with my wife, reading Scientific American to you to help her get to sleep because I know it will put you to sleep.
Yeah,
But there's a plethora of studies that supports every sentence I say.
of
I
course.
could do an academic thing and have many footnotes and guaranteed that you wouldn't get through the first half page. I'm done with that. This is the reals. This is land use. This is public utility commissions. This is keeping wetlands wet, keeping roads porous, painting things white because it doesn't absorb as much heat. My electric bill got cut in half when I painted my roof white. You
Wow.
know, we didn't have AC. Um, I was against it, but as a holdout. But the on it and just a simple thing
Simple
like
thing.
and New York's and there's a new paint out. I talk about the whiz bang things that come around, and this one actually scaled up. And this paint is highly reflective. That's way more than I would make my paint. I'd, be a farmer and mix stuff and put little reflective, shiny things that girls use for bedazzling their clothes. I'd mix that in with it. And they now have serious chemists and scientists. You can paint things white, save on your bill. Now, one thing I haven't emphasized is the money saving potential of these things, saving money on energy, saving money on healthcare, saving money on a lot of ways. And it is a motivational factor for a lot of people. But I've focused on flourishing because I think happiness and security and intergenerational community relationships are more important than money if you have to compare one versus the other. I don't think they're separable, but things that save money can save the planet.
Okay. Um, I think the next little segment I have on my Kindle. Um, whoops, I want to show you the cover I have on my Kindle. I ordered it. I
Thank
keep
you.
I keep on losing the cover. There's the cover.
I see it. I see it.
It's on my Kindle, and it is a blueprint. I mean, it's just brilliant for the future. Um, so I'm just going to, and I didn't take notes, and I didn't necessarily prepare, but I've been thumbing through all this. Uh, um, I wildfires. And I have a little bit of background because I worked with NJ Discover for 12 or 13 years. One of the things that we did, the boss man, Kurt at NJ Discover, he got involved with, I forgot his name, but he has a product out there in California that you spray wood and it's fire retardant.
Can you see me, Calvin?
Yeah, sure. I see
Okay.
it.
I've lost your image, but that's okay. I don't want to lose you.
Do you
Uh,
do you see me
yeah.
now?
No,
You
no,
don't
but
see me? How's that possible?
I don't know. You're very handsome. I like seeing you, but
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know why you lost me. Most importantly, I didn't lose you, and we're filming this, so
that's all right. Let's
uh,
press on because I want to talk about what the fireproofing thing that you found
yeah.
out.
So I mean, listen. We're gonna come back and talk more about this because I think this is, well, it is so important. But I'm just kind of so the wildfire. So it was a remarkably successful product, and he's just trying to get this out there. And I know after the recent fires they had down in California, lots of people started ordering, that it's a solution, whatever you spray, and it's really fire resistant. So that's just one part.
Oh,
But
many more things too. They have roofing that's fire resistant. The choices used to be in California. Some pretty wealthy proper or expensive property went up in flames, and you would just go north. First, you went to Northern California. Well, there was fires there. Then you went to Oregon, where I lived for about 22 years. There were fires there. I used to go up into Montana and Idaho. I visited things personally for what I wrote about environmentally. I'd sleep in the back of my pickup truck. My wife wouldn't go with me. It was pretty rough
yeah, that was
situation.
tough.
And every year, what was strange, up in Idaho, up in Montana, is that the fires would last longer and longer, and the smoke would fill up the valleys. But like the shark and Jaws, they didn't want to tell the people about it because those places don't have a lot of money. And tourism in the summer is a big deal with all the national parks there. So the last time I went up there, I woke up and I looked out and I thought, my God, it must have snowed. I looked around, there was like 6 inches. It looked all white and powdery. And it was ash had fallen, 6 inches of ash. Just that I didn't even see where the fire was. The
Wow.
I've been first on the scene over the mountains on the big fire a couple years ago in Oregon. I was on um, what mountain was it?
Hood.
No, no, short of Hood. It was a smaller mountain. It was only 5,100 feet. It was like Gravestone Mountain. And I looked over to the east, and that's where the Cascades were. They're volcanoes. And I looked and I saw puffy white clouds. But I'm an environmental person. I know what volcanic smoke looks like. That was not volcanic smoke. For the first time in 200 years, usually the wind goes west to east. The wind went east to west. There was a big fire. It, it lasted until October 15th when the rains came. I ran 5 miles down that mountain. I went to the National Park Service place. It was Labor Day weekend. It was closed. I had no cell phone reception. Ran until I got in my truck and got into a town where I got some. And it sparked three other fires, and they all combined in a huge fire. And they went down a highway that had very, very rich, expensive property. Um, uh, Sotheby's were their realtors. And a lot of very wealthy people lost their housing, and it was so bad that people were unable to get mortgage insurance when buying a house in Oregon. for about 2 months because it was just too dangerous to, so they
Mm.
couldn't even rebuild. And as you know, if you have a mortgage on a house and it burns down, you still have to pay the mortgage. And so it was not flourishing. It was very dangerous. And I watched it spread over the years from Idaho to Montana, to parts of Washington, then finally down into Oregon. So the people that we talked about in California that would go north could no longer do that. That increased the market for that kind of paint that can prevent fires. Instead of selling your property in wine country in California and getting 800,000 and buying a great place in Oregon for 300,000, you no longer really had that option. The fires are all up and down the West Coast. So, unless you wanted to go to Wyoming or rural Colorado, it was no, so the market for that paint, because of global climate change and people adapting, increased greatly. And so that person who probably invested a lot in research and development and marketing and trying to sell that kind of paint, as well as how do you apply it and all that stuff with paint, then probably at least broke even and maybe made a profit, as well as helping people simply not get burned up on the environment.
Okay. And thumbing through this and trying to you have a quote here that just, it's like somebody took a mallet and hit me over the head. We are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it, from President Obama. Powerful stuff, and it's really right. It's right on. I mean,
That's what that statement is what pushed me over the edge to write the book. And
wow.
like we have crystallized intelligence and we have all the experiences of our life, all my education, all my writing. And I saw that quote and I said, God, Bob, you gotta get the word out there because this is, if we don't do it with this generation, it'll cause so much harm. People won't flourish when they have a chance to even, it won't even be a thought. It's still a thought that we could flourish and paint our house and not burn up. Get the road in that's high enough that it doesn't flood, so we're cut off from getting food and medicines. We still have that chance.
Um, the book is it's biblical. I mean, you wrote a Bible. No, you did. In the way you break it down, and you're talking about just adaptation, resilient generation power, floods, drought. I mean, we're in the middle of another terrible drought, the second one this year. It's terrible, and it's there. And we have it, and you know what? The drought affects every year I reseed and I aerate my lawn. And for the first time in maybe 25 years, I said to hell with it because it doesn't pay. Because I can't reseed it because there's no watering. I don't water. I've never used water to water my grass, ever.
Well, the drought also had, I didn't get into all this in the book, but when a drought occurs and the water table goes down, the concentrations of toxins and pollutants in the water goes up. Like in San Antonio, they used up that water in that aquifer, and what happened was that all the harder inorganic chemicals that are in there, PCPs, plastics, and everything else, they get super concentrated and the remaining water supply from that aquifer. So droughts have long term. I was an advisor to the Oregon Water Quality Commission, about, not paid or anything. And we studied it very, very closely. There's a drought is a slow rolling natural disaster. And there's the definitional maze is terrible. There's about 140 definitions of drought. And one drought can be, sustained by the yearly agricultural production of crops. But when you have droughts back to back, a lot of agricultural businesses, farmers, and the food supply chain becomes impacted. Droughts are very serious business.
Mhm.
And by having just a little bit of conservation, during rain intensification that can precede a drought, and saving up water. Around my house, I have five 50-gallon rain barrels that catch a runoff from the roof, uh,
Wow.
just in case. Now, they don't look nice and they're not pretty. I need to do something about that. But nonetheless, just if someone, I mean, what would you do if you couldn't get water out of the tap that you could drink? The last 3 days.
Wow. Wow. And again, I'm thumbing through this and I'm listening to you and I'm thumbing through this. It's just step by step how you outline and how you discuss these things. And you've got a blueprint for flourishing, and that's an important word for you, flourishing, because we need to flourish. Uh, um, the impacts on natural, it's just, like I said, it's just so important, the book. And you know what, this is a good place. I got to ask you a couple things off topic. I forewarned you because we've been somewhat heavy-handed, and that's good because we need that. But completely off topic. There used to be an old TV show, maybe before your time. This Is Your Life with Ralph Edwards.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is your life, Robert Collin. So here's a couple of questions, um, completely off topic, but that's fine. Uh, Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Oh,
Could be a couple. There's no rules here. No rules.
um, uh, Alexander the Great.
Okay. Good
Yeah.
answer. Good
He had
answer.
good libraries. He had good libraries.
An interesting guy. I don't think enough is spoken about him these days. He's buried in history. And I think each generation is less and less, but he did some pretty amazing things. All right, next question. Um, you have some favorite movies?
Oh, I was afraid you asked that.
Were
Uh,
you?
yes, I must have ADHD when it comes to visual images. I've never seen a whole movie. I've never seen a whole TV show. I
Wow.
mute all my ads, and I don't have the patience. It's so predictable in terms of that I just, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. What next? And so, um, uh, favorite movies. Well, the movie with Scrooge
Oh,
that you like so well. I
oh,
have
I love
watched that a couple
it.
times,
Christmas Carol. I love it.
Carol, and it
Love it.
somehow that just touches my heart. I don't know how to describe it on it, and I haven't really, when I see a movie, the first thing I think about is, well, there's a bunch of people acting, there's cameras all around them, and they're just saying that they don't really mean it because they're acting. And that's not the mindset to view some of the most eloquent versions of our humanity that crosses our eyes.
Yeah, you talked about A Christmas Carol. Dickens wrote it in 1841, and the scene and I watch it every Christmas Eve because it's just. And I only watch the one with Alastair Sim. There are no others in my book. He's just a marvelous British actor, and he just captures the character so spot on. But there's a scene that just resonates with me, and it's relevant and pertinent to this. And the scene is Scrooge is with the
Mm.
ghost of Christmas present, and he's at the end of his time with the ghost of Christmas present. So they're standing outside. It's cold. It's snowy. It's Christmas Eve, and then the spirit opens up his coat, and he shows underneath his coat, clinging to the spirit's feet, is a little boy all tattered, and a little girl all tattered and dirty, and their eyes are kind of deep in their skulls, and Scrooge asks the spirit, "Who are they?" And the spirit says, "They're man's." And beware of the boy who represents ignorance and the little girl who represents want. And he said, beware of them both, but beware of the boy the most, ignorance. And that, and I'm just amazed because it's
It's prescient.
1841.
It's
Nothing
prescient.
has
Yeah.
changed.
No,
Nothing has
nothing.
changed.
Ignorance is
Nothing.
the greatest enemy.
Yep. It is our greatest enemy. And anyway, this is a good place to do a wrap. And you and I, we're going to be continuing in all kinds of different formats and working with Rick and stuff. And you'll come back and maybe we'll put together a little climate group to discuss because there's endless amounts of discussion here. So, uh, Bob Collin, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for any group you're a part of. I'm happy to be part of,
Thank you.
Calvin. I make an exception for your
Well,
humanity.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And we didn't talk basketball. We'll save that for another time. Anyway, I'm going to stop recording. Again, this has been great. It's been sumptuous, one of my favorite words. So that's what this has been. And again, just thank you. And again, I thank the universe getting us together. I think that's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, to be continued, everybody. Thank you.